Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. And have we got some shock news for you this morning as Marcus Rashford is slammed as a problem at Man United for years from a really surprising source. I've got really big opinions on this and some of them are sympathetic towards Rashford, which actually might shock a lot of people. We've also got a transfer update on Nuno Mendes of PSG. There is also more stuff coming about INEOS that things could get worse as they look to make more financial cuts. Fabrizio Romano's been talking about a couple of players as well. I think he's in Manchester actually. And we've also got a bit on the a potentially shock signing from Sunderland, which I actually, in all due respect, think is a load of crap just being made up for whatever reason, I don't know. But we'll talk about that as well. It involves Jobe Bellingham. But let's hit this. This story to me, nobody wants to be talking about Marcus Rashford unless it's him leaving Man United. Let's be honest, it would be a huge backward step by Amorim to include Rashford tomorrow in the Newcastle game. I think he's been left out justifiably for a long time, and I think people want to see change. So I don't think anyone really wants to be talking about Rashford until he leaves. But this is absolutely stunning. Now, to give context to this, Manchester United and certain journalists have always protected Marcus Rashford. Now, the reasons for that, you can criticise, you can praise, who knows. But what we have is this statement from Andy Mitten, who is a very respected person. I'm sure you've heard of the name before. He's appeared on MUTV. He's got his own fanzine. He appears in press conferences. So a very respected, I don't want to say top red. You know, I think if you were thinking of somebody, that's probably who we'd think of. So never, in my opinion, has never done this before, and has basically been asked about Rashford and has said this, that every previous manager has had issues with Marcus Rashford. I've spoken to them. They've told me in confidence going back years and years and years. That is a bombshell. That is absolutely massive because I can't recall this sort of thing being said before, and I just think that it's coming from somebody that I would say would be in the protection of Marcus Rashford league. So for him to be saying it when Man United still have Marcus Rashford a player, and he's saying that he's been told by players that Rashford's been a problem for years and years and years, that is massive, absolutely massive. And I would imagine, look, Marcus Rashford wants to leave Manchester United. I still think we've got fans out there with pictures of Rashford on the wall thinking, please pick him, Amorim, and he can come back. For everything that I've heard over the last few weeks, that is up there with one of the most damning things I've ever heard, because that goes beyond Amorim. That goes beyond what fans think of Rashford. You know, Ricky's said he doesn't like Rashford for years as a player. There's been times when I've said 2 years ago we should sell him, even though I've hoped he would bounce back. And I feel that, like, the bullying nature that's been going on around Manchester United for years, I almost feel a little bit disappointed by this. I almost feel a little bit, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I almost feel a little bit sorry for Rashford, really, because, and I'll explain why. Because it's the typical sort of English mentality in the media to build somebody up and protect them. And then when things go wrong, you look around and everybody's sticking the knife in. And my issue I have with this is that Rashford needs to go. And Amorim is doing the right thing. But why is it that suddenly, and I'm not talking about Andy Mitten here, by the way, I'm talking about in general, the media have protected Rashford for years. Certain journalists have protected Rashford for years. The club have protected Rashford for years. And suddenly, it's open season. And it's like, we want to sell him. He's a problem. He's not dedicated. He's not trying hard. And all those things may be true. But if Andy Mitten is saying this has been going on for years and loads of managers have had a problem with him, why? I actually sit here as a United fan and I feel really pissed off. Because any of us who've called Rashford out over the last few years has basically been, it's gone as far as death threats. It's been, vile, the reaction to people who've had the audacity to say that Rashford's not good enough for Man United. And yet, we're now finding out that Man United have swept it under the carpet for years. So I sort of sit here and go, so when I said we should sell Rashford 2 years ago and people used that clip against me, I was right. And when you said Rashford ain't as good as he thinks he is 3 years ago, you were right, but you were called out for it. And we're now finding the truth, that for years, it's been known that Rashford is an issue at Man United by multiple managers. So we've basically swept something under the carpet for years that we could have solved years ago. And well done, Amorim and INEOS, for hitting it dead on and solving the problem. But why and how did we think we were going to be successful years ago when we kept facilitating this issue? And that's what pisses me off. And if I was Rashford, I'd be pissed off as well, because I'd go, if I'd have been kicked out years ago, I might have sorted myself out. So I just think that what people might be missing here, is a bigger conspiracy at Manchester United, whereby they've clearly been aware of this issue for a long time, and they've not done anything about it. And I tell you what it fits in with as well. It fits in exactly with what many of us have been saying for a long time. At times, that football club's been run by players and not managers. And this fits in perfectly with that. He's been an issue for years for many managers, and yet he's survived beyond all of them. And this is the first manager we've had who's actually dealt with the issue and just kicked him out of the team. But I didn't expect to be talking about this morning, and I'm absolutely devastated by the news, really, because it's probably what I would have expected, but never could have said it because it would be pure speculation. But now it's come out. That particular journalist is not somebody that, I don't think he always talks sense. Who does? But he's certainly not somebody who makes a habit of saying this sort of thing. I mean, it's quite a big thing for him to say. I tell you for free, Rashford and his entourage will be fuming where that's come from. Because for that to come from that person who doesn't do that sort of thing, who is basically saying that Rashford's been a big issue for years and every manager has verified that to him, that is, for me, a shocker this Sunday morning. It's an absolute shocker. And it also, I think, more importantly, exposes the Glazers and Manchester United that they've been aware of this problem and protected him for a very long time. We've had experience of it as the United stand. We've had experience of it where, you get a bit of feedback because you said something about Rashford from the club. So I'm just absolutely outraged by this, because what effectively has been happening is that we've been run by player power for years. We've had managers that have said that he's a player, he's an issue, and the club have said no, he's not. And we've been shit for years. I mean, it's just stunning how bad this football club has been run for so long. And there's a multitude of things, letting the stadium rot, the debt, etc., the bad purchases. But keeping a player for this long who's a problem is just disgusting. We're Manchester United, for God's sake. You look back through our history. When have we ever been successful by allowing a player to be more powerful than the actual club? And that is what has been facilitated over the last years. I mean, we really did nearly put the circus industry out of business over the last decade, didn't we? Because we really have recruited the best set of clowns in football history. I mean, I just can't believe it. And there's just no reason to not think that that's true. There's just no reason not to think it's true. And I'll read it again. From Andy Mitten, every previous manager has had issues with Rashford. I've spoken to them and they've told me going back years and years and years. So why did United not solve this years and years and years ago? Disgusting. But there is a flip side to that coin as well. If this information's been out there for years and years, why is it people like me, and you and other people who've called this out, every time you said anything about Rashford, you got a pile on. So these people who've known about it are facilitators, aren't they? You can't... I actually do agree with that. You can't just come out now and pile on to Rashford when you've protected him for years. If you are the club or a journalist or a media outlet, you've protected him for years, and now you're coming out saying it's been known for years that he was a problem. That pisses me off, because you facilitated all of this shit as well. And I don't like that. I will always stand against that. I think the British media is a disgrace in relation to how it builds people up. And then when something goes wrong, you're on your own. You know, there's no loyalty. And loyalty is a very big thing, I think, for a lot of us. Loyalty and trust is a big thing. And these people have protected him and are now stabbing him in the back. And they're coming with his lot and going, he's always been a problem. He's always been a problem. Hold on a minute. 2 years ago, when I said we should have sold him, I got absolute fucking pelters for it. There was nobody going, Goldbridge is right. No, I'm talking about in the wider media. But now, 2 years later, oh yeah, he's been a problem for longer than that. You know, he should have been got rid of 2 years. Well, I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so, but I'm going to sit here and say, why the fuck weren't you saying it 2 years ago? Why were you protecting him 2 years ago? What was going on that you protected that relationship? What were you getting? You know, and why were Man United doing it? It just pisses me off. This goes beyond Rashford. This is absolutely fundamentally what's been going wrong at Manchester United for years. Player power dominating the media, the journalists and the club. And, you know, if you say anything bad about them, bang. I mean, look, is Rashford this morning going to reply to Andy Mitten and say, stop spreading malicious rumours? All we did was say his future's in doubt because he's not playing well. And that's a malicious rumour. This morning, you've been a major problem at Man United for years and every manager's said it. I mean, that's a malicious rumour, mate. If you want to come out and tell us, I bet he won't. So do we take it as truth that Rashford's been a massive problem at Man United for years? What a mess. What an absolute mess. It's an embarrassment. It's a stain on Manchester United Football Club if there is any element of truth in this. And anybody who's been involved in it is a facilitator. To keep this under wraps for years is a disgrace. And we wonder why we are where we are. It's just disgusting. And what about all those fans that have passed away in the last few years and died with Man United being shit? Because a bunch of people decided to facilitate player power over what the club actually means to people. This needs to stop. We're not playing a game of Ring a Roses here. We're not playing a game of bloody Monopoly at Christmas. This is real life. This is a massive football club. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of how amateur it is. And it's not good enough. Robert McCormack says it's not about his ability though, is it? I don't know what you're talking about, Robert. I mean, do you want me to read it for the third time? Every previous manager has had issues with Rashford. I've spoken to them. They've told me in confidence going back years and years and years. What's his ability got to do with anything? He's a major issue, Robert. That's what that's saying. Mark, have you seen INEOS's Facebook post claiming groundbreaking innovations to unforgettable moments in sport? They're jokers, says James. I'll talk about INEOS in a minute. And Glenn C says, I saw a joking post that INEOS are pushing for United's home games to be all in daytime to save an electric. I hope INEOS are embarrassed, says Glenn C. It was evident even the manager he seemingly got along with, Ollie, had to apologise for something he said about him. It tells me managers have been forced to play him, says Ronnie. Solskjaer had to say sorry to Rashford publicly. Player power is the club's fault. Glazers out, says. I completely agree. I completely agree. If I go into work tomorrow and I say to my boss and everybody like that, you know, we're going to do things my way and they let me, who's at fault? If it was known he was a problem, who would then the media wise decision to give him a new contract, says Glenn. Yeah. Do you think Mourinho wanted to sell Rashford? Well, I don't have the information on this on Angel Bomb, but I do remember Jose Mourinho saying last summer that there are two or three players still at the club that he wanted to get rid of in his first year. That could have only been Luke Shaw, Martial and Rashford. Now, I always thought it was Martial and Shaw, but maybe it was Rashford, I don't know. Marlow FC says, good morning, Mark. I really feel for Amorim. He came into a broken club and is trying to build a new sense of togetherness and team spirit, but is constantly undermined by the INEOS greedy action, says Marlow. Rashford should have been moved on a year ago, in my opinion, says Rub. Well, longer than that by the sounds of it. A lot of fans felt like they were going crazy. Glad confirmation of issues finally being aired. Acknowledging issues is first step to cultural resets, says Patrick. Mate, I actually think you've nailed it there. I mean, as somebody who sits and does these shows every day for years, I can honestly say there's been time. I mean, I won't not do it, but there's honestly been times in the last 12 months where I've probably reluctantly spoken about Rashford, because I'm like, every time you do, you know you're going to get a pile on. I mean, Rashford basically hands a transfer request in 2 weeks ago. I get death threats for it. It's just, and I hope that those people who have been up Rashford's arse for the last few years are sat here this morning, you know, feeling a little bit, you know, more worldwidely. You know, what I mean by that is maybe you might start to think for yourself and realise that you might be being manipulated, because coming out attacking people who want your player to be sold, well, what do you react to today with the news that Amorim is saying that he's still not trying in training? Amorim's still not picking him. The player wants to leave, and then a very respected journalist around Man United is saying that he's been called out by managers for years and has been an issue for years, and you're still protecting that. And Patrick's right. A lot of fans who've been calling him out almost feel like that they're the villain, that they're going mad, when you can see it with your own eyes. I mean, how many times have we seen this player underperform, not track back, not run? Then he scores a goal and you're being attacked because he's scored one goal, and yet he's not tracking back, he's not playing well in every other bloody game. This just, I think we've just lived through an amazing period where you actually do sort of doubt yourself, Patrick. You're sort of watching it and going, am I wrong here? Am I watching this player who's been really bad for nearly 18 months, but he scores a goal and apparently he's back? You know, it's just madness. And I tell you what, this is a lesson in as well. This is a lesson in how a footballer or a politician or an actor can surround themselves with such a good entourage of PR that performance becomes secondary and actually perception becomes, you know, the main thing. Because when you look at it, Anthony Gordon's a better player than Marcus Rashford, but who is more popular? Who's making more money? You know, and there are popularity lists. You know, Leonardo DiCaprio is a more popular actor than Daniel Day-Lewis, but Daniel Day-Lewis is a better actor. And why is that? Because one is in the limelight and, you know, does a lot more films, and the other one doesn't. And I think that, look, for me, the football club always comes first. As I said, if I woke up this morning and Rasmus, Mainu and Garnacho had been sold to generate funds, I'd be very sad about that, but it's Manchester United. It's always Manchester United. And it's a crazy thing that people don't understand that. I think there's a lot of people that understand that, and I think the fundamentals of it I'll explain, but the newer generation seem to champion players over the club. If you know anything about Manchester United, and some of you don't, you really should go and see what happened in the 50s, how we built this young team and it got taken away from us, and they couldn't play for us anymore because they weren't here. But the club remained, the name remained, and it rebuilt itself. We're Manchester United. We have a story. We lost an amazing team. A lot of them died. We couldn't play them anymore. We never forgot them, but we couldn't play that team anymore. So we carried on the name, and that's what Manchester United is. And I say shame on those people who have facilitated the last few years where players who aren't fit to wear the fucking shirt are being protected for years for the benefit of who? Disgusting. Disgusting the way this club has been run by the Glazers. Absolutely disgusting. And I think that we deserve to be where... The fans don't deserve to be where we are, but the way the club has been run, we deserve to get fucking relegated. It's absolutely disgusting. Letting Old Trafford rot, the theatre of dreams. You know, protecting players over the club. We deserve to get relegated, but obviously as fans, we don't deserve that. But it's absolutely disgusting. And, you know, I just hope that the good that comes out of this is that, you know, we never see these type of players playing again. we never see these issues again. I would hope that we're on the pathway to that. I think that's the positive, is that, you know, Amorim hasn't picked Rashford for games, but it's not just Rashford, by the way. Like, he won't, as I said to you the other day, he won't be the problem. He may be an issue, but he won't be the problem. There will be more. There will be more. There'll be more, 100%, and it's about who they are. If what Andy Mitten is saying is true, that Man United have been covering up this issue for years with Rashford, what other players are, and this is the way my mind works, and I think it's the way many of yours works. When you get the story, everybody knows the story. I start thinking, well, that's not the only story. Who else has been protected for years at this football club? And there will be more. There will be more. I want United back, says Robotic Maniac. The Rashford gang are young. All social media, it's disgusting and has got nothing to do with football, says Sticks. Sir Alex Ferguson wanted to knock Liverpool off their perch. The Glazers did it to their own club, says Bosch. Robotic Maniac, thank you very much for your sticker. I think the fundamental reason United defending him is because of his off-field social services. Him being a good human instead of being a professional footballer split the club and manager's opinions, says English Saturn. Mate, honestly, if I run a football club and players aren't playing well, you're out the team. Juan Mata did a load of stuff for charity. He wasn't getting picked every week. I mean, look, it's great if a footballer is doing stuff off the pitch using their voice for it, but it's about on the pitch, isn't it? We're Manchester United. We can't be running a football club like that. Jason Statham is better than all the actors, says Rub. Pogba, Rashford, Shaw, Bruno, Player FC nailed on, says Josh. Hi Mark, what do you think about the whole Mainu situation? Too young for the position and it's killing his confidence. We must not let this half-baked performances become the standard. Time to loan him out, says Artak. I mean, look, in relation to developing players, maybe a loan for Rasmus would work. Maybe a loan for Garnacho would work. But in the position that we're in at the moment, is there anybody better than Mainu that we can pick in the midfield? And we don't. So we're stuck in this position. I think you make a good point. Let's be honest, they tried hiding it because of Player FC. The star boy, they needed a marketing outlet. He is not that good overall, says John. Mate, I think you're spot on. I think we've said this before. I think Ten Hag was a facilitator in this. When I look back at Ten Hag and I look at Amorim, I don't believe sacking Ten Hag solved our problems. Obviously, it didn't. But one thing that I never liked about Ten Hag, and I never wanted to sack him, you know that, but I did say this, favouritism. I even said it in the summer, he's got to stop the favouritism. And I think he was a manager, maybe with pressure from the club, that continually picked players that didn't deserve to get picked in the hope that they would come good. And I think that's basically what Man United have tried to do. And if you look at the Rashford situation and even the Bruno position at the moment, there is just this reluctance to face up to very expensive mistakes. So it's almost like we've spent so much money on this, we need to just hope that it's going to work. And it hasn't. Did you see the rumour that Radcliffe already thinks Ruud was the better option? Like, did we already forget what Amorim and Ten Hag did against the biggest teams in Europe? Lazarus, I've not heard that. Not heard that at all. And if Sir Jim Radcliffe thinks Ruud's better than Amorim, then you know maybe Sir Jim could sell Manchester United and go and buy Leicester and fuck off. Vinny Red says, aren't we past Rashford talk, not in the squad anymore? Well, we are, Vinny, but it's a very relevant piece of news this morning. If you tuned in at the start, you'd know what we were talking about. And I think it's a bigger, it transcends Rashford, as I said, because it just shows how corrupt Manchester United have been over recent years in protecting things they shouldn't have protected. That's the thing that pisses me off, is that obviously I do this and have been doing this for years with you, and in that time, some of you, including myself, have criticised Rashford and got a load of stick for it. And today we find out that the club have always had an issue with him. They just protected him, and that pisses me off. It really pisses me off because, as Patrick Lynch said, you sort of end up being the villain yourself for calling something out that you're absolutely convinced is a problem, and then you're called the problem for it. They kept him to give him the best, more chance of winning. Robert, I don't know. None of your statements make any sense to me at the moment, mate. I think I need a little bit more from you. I don't know what you're talking about. They kept him to give them more chance of winning. What does that even mean? He's not in the team at the moment, mate. He's been rubbish for 18 months. What? I don't know what you mean, and I don't want to jump on you. So you're going to have to give me more. I've said it before, but Rashford wouldn't have lasted more than 2 seasons under Sir Alex. He's come through when our managers are getting the chop every 2 or 3 years, whilst players get new contracts as endless motion. Let's be honest, Rashford has gone downhill since Food for Kids and the challenges the government thinking I'm a big I am, hence contract raise he's faced, as Marvel Michael. Look, if you want a soundbite on Rashford, the player, I think he's been overrated beyond what his talent is. I think when you look back at it, there were glimpses of quality and he scored a lot of goals, but I think he's been figured out. I think people figured him out. You don't give him any space and you double up on him and he's got nothing else. He'll always be a player that if you give him a chance in the box under with no one near him, he's got a good finish on him. But I think, as I said before, he's been labelled as Mbappe when actually he's St. Maximum. That's his level. He's a player that on his day is very exciting, but he's very, very inconsistent. And because he's English and he plays for Man United, we've overrated him. If he'd started his career at Everton, it's debatable he'd have gone any higher than Spurs. But at Manchester United, and look, I'm one of those people that said he could have won a Ballon d'Or at one point. So I fell into that trap as well. And I think he's fell into that trap as well. I mean, look, we don't know how intelligent Marcus Rashford is. The Food for Kids stuff is amazing. The book is amazing. But did he sit there and come up with that? Or did the entourage around him come up with that? Does he, at home, have the mentality to understand that he is at fault for his form? Or has he got people around him telling him you're great and he listens to it? We don't know. Because it's so close-knit around him that everybody who does Rashford's talking are the entourage around him. So I don't know. I don't really know enough about him. Happy New Year, Mark, and everyone in the chat. What do you think was the specific reason as to why Rashford hasn't been the same? Says Tom. I don't listen. I think I've just answered that, Tom. I actually don't know. It was clear from the moment Ollie said, first of all, I want to apologise to Rashford because he said he needed to focus on football, says Razvin. Yeah. And Andy Mitten's very close to Ollie. So, yeah, 2 + 2 is 4 on that one. But how long ago was Ollie in charge? Did it go back to Jose? Well, I think it certainly went back to Ollie. But, look, there's not a lot more we can say about it. I just think it reflects very, very badly on the football club. Big Z says, maybe they didn't do anything because of asset value. When at his best, value was high. Who will buy him with this bad reputation coming out? And if Amorim doesn't come top 4 and win either the FA or the Europa League, I will call for his sacking because, unlike you, I'm not dropping my standards. Okay, Chak, you keep telling us that. We'll all have a good old laugh. Should have got rid of him 5 managers ago, says Kev. Would love for Amorim to give Rashford the armband for this game since we're likely to lose anyway and would shut a lot of people up, says Notorious. Okay. Eric Ten Hag was hired to get the best out of Rashford, says Michael. The reason why the Glazers have protected Rashford is because they must have stock in him. They have made millions off him. I have never liked Rashford, says Harmonda. Robert McCormack says he might be a disgrace. He might need to go, no issue, but we are just not the same team without him, and it's been completely proven statistically. Look, Robert, all I'm going to say about this is, when was the last time we had him then? Because I don't remember the last time Rashford had a good game for Man United. He had a good half against Porto this year. He scored 2 goals against Everton, but we haven't had him for 18 months. I think the last time that we actually had him was consistently the run-up to the Newcastle Carabao Cup final. Always thought Rashford's body language was terrible, says the Attic. I mean, it is turning into a Rashford show. I don't want it to turn into a Rashford show, but what I'm talking about is the bigger problems that Man United have. Also, what Andy Mitten had to say was this. With regards to INEOS, there will be more financial cuts to come. The club is losing an absolute fortune. So that in itself is very interesting as well. There will be more financial cuts to come. The club is losing an absolute fortune. Now, obviously, we spoke yesterday about the cuts to the ex-player charity. But I just feel like repeating this again. On what planet do we as fans have to get on board with this? More cuts and the club is losing ridiculous amounts of money. Hello? There was people willing to buy the club and clear the debt. and we wouldn't have been losing money, and we wouldn't have had to make more cuts. So I don't get what the INEOS model is. You're sacking good people. You're screwing over charities. You're screwing over fans with ticket price increases. You're abandoning Christmas parties. You're trying to fund a new stadium with external fund. None of this would have happened if you just said, we're bad for getting into bed with the Glazers. Let's let these people who've got a load of money buy this football club that we love. So, and I'll sort of leave it at that. I don't know what we're supposed to do as fans. Are we supposed to go, well, yeah, you know, it is really difficult. We've got to make cuts. I mean, I had people replying to my tweet last night saying they're doing a good job. They're doing a good job. If you want a club that's sustainable in the future, then you're going to have to cut staff. Yeah, we're paying £50 million a year in debt repayments, and we're still in hundreds of millions of pounds of debt. What sustainability are you talking about, cutting 40k to a charity a year and sacking people and stopping Christmas parties? If you want to be sustainable, maybe stop paying £50 million a year in debt repayments and stop being over £500 million a year in debt. This is not something a Man United fan should have to concern themselves about or be sympathetic to. The reality of the situation is probably that there will be more cuts to come and the club is losing an absolute fortune. I don't, for 1 minute, disagree with that. We will have to make more financial cuts and we are losing an absolute fortune. But that's because of the people who own the football club. The people who own the football club do not want to put their own money into it. The people who run the football club do not want to clear the debt and haven't wanted to clear the debt for 20 years. And the people who run the football club have actually caused this situation where we're going to have to spend a lot of money to build a new stadium because they let the current one rot. I just don't, for the life of me, understand how any United fan can be on board with this or even attempt to defend it. When if you had two options, right? You're in financial problems, yeah? Someone knocks at the door and says, there's all the money and I'm going to clear the debt. And then someone else knocks at the door and says, here's a little bit of money. The debt will stay and we're still going to be in financial problems. Yeah, I'll go with you. I mean, that was literally the choice that we had as fans. Now, we didn't make the choice because the Glazers obviously want to stay. But I don't get the INEOS sort of PR machine of putting it out there that it's difficult times and we need to make cuts. But you put us into the difficult times. We didn't need to be in the difficult times. Those difficult times are a vanity project for you. You selfishly put us into this position. We didn't need to be in this. No United fan needs to sit here and go, oh, I agree with INEOS, you know. It is difficult financially, but it didn't need to be. That's because they did a deal with the Glazers. They put us into this position. We didn't need to be in a position where we're sacking people, we're increasing ticket prices, we're still in debt. We're only in it because INEOS put themselves in that position because they did a deal with the Glazers. If they didn't do that deal, then maybe the Glazers would have sold to Qatar. Maybe they'd have done a deal with the American investment group, but I tell you what, if they'd have done that, the protests never would have stopped. INEOS gave the Glazers a dream ticket, sorry. Because if the Glazers had gone and got funding from an American hedge fund, the protests would have gone massive. The Glazers stay with help from an American hedge fund. That would have gone absolutely global, massive protests. The only reason this works is because instead of it being an American hedge fund helping the Glazers survive with their debt, it's local lifelong supporter Sir Jim Ratcliffe doing it. I look at it sometimes and I go, it's almost a little bit too perfect, isn't it? If they'd have took this money from an American hedge fund, there would have been protests. But because it's Sir Jim, lifelong Man United fan, local lad, it's fine. When the reality is, the outcome is the same. Massive debt, we've got to make cuts, we're in financial trouble. It looks what it is at the moment. It's just a front for what we've had for the last 10 years, which is why we need to we need to see it. I mean, I hate to be this basic, but the only way that they can sort of keep their head above water if you're INEOS at the moment is bring players in January and start selling some of the shit. That's I mean, ultimately, always, I hate to be that shallow, but it's true. How many times did we go into a summer transfer window with protests of Glazers out, and then you buy a couple of players and people are like, oh yeah, this is it, we're cooking. So their only chance is to actually do some business in January. All managers are complicit with Rashford or any other high-profile player, was Martial another, says the Attic Radio. Mark's quote of 2024, we nearly put the circus industry out of business. Spot on, says Stefan. Ayub, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. And you cannot change the culture of something under a vanity project. Those Glazers need removing before this can happen, says Lee. INEOS is trying to build a culture at the football club by getting rid of all the staff, says Hyans. And Ahmad Said says, I want to express my appreciation for Theo's community. I made the choice to save my wife over my child, and I'm now going through divorce. This channel has been been one of the only lights. Thank you, Mark, says Ahmed. Thank you very much for your message this morning, mate. Hope you're doing well. Ross Walsh says, INEOS cry poverty and we're meant to be on board. Exactly. I don't know what... look, maybe some very basic people will fall into that trap, but the fundamentals are, it's like someone knocking on your door and saying, I've got no money. Can you help me out? And then you go, you won the lottery last week. What have you spent it on? Yeah. It's self-inflicted. Has the 40k cuts been confirmed? Truly vile stuff, says Bruh. Daniel Sturtridge says, thanks to everything Rashford, but it's time to go. We dreamed the same dream. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. Best of luck. And Jordan says, if January isn't the slightest bit successful in terms of bringing the right people in for Ruben, I can see INEOS out movement beginning. I actually agree, Jordan. I think their only rescue point is going to be being active in the January transfer window. Rashford never learned space and movement. Watch Mo Salah. He never not free to damage. That's why he fell off, says Ray. 5 years ago, Ashley Young tried to take a quick throw into Rashford. Rashford turned his back and walked off. Young put his hands up as if to say, what the fuck? I knew then Rashford was a useless wanker, says Pilgrim MUFC. Did he not shout at Maguire when he was captain and tell him to fuck off during COVID as well? I mean, at the time, we probably thought it was really good, but when you look back at it, who's the one who's actually delivered it since that time? INEOS claim a successful year on their Facebook page, says James. And what type of issues? That's a very vague comment from Mitten to make without giving us content. He needs to go, and this makes it harder, says Trishan. Mate, it's a very damning thing. That's why we, sort of led with it this morning. It's a massive thing to say that he's been an issue at Man United for years. I mean, understandably, if I was Rashford or his people, I'd be fuming this morning, because you're going to know that from a respected journalist is hugely damaging. Hugely damaging. Would you prefer Rashford or a young Welbeck, says Niki? I'd take a young Welbeck, yeah. You get paid the huge contract. The club has put faith in you to do whatever it takes to produce. He hasn't done that. It makes my blood boil, says Benoit. Anyway, let's talk about a few other bits. In relation to Nuno Mendes, Pletty goal, Florian Plettenberg, who's a decent journalist around transfers from Sky Germany, has said, keep an eye on Nuno Mendes over the next few weeks. Look, keep an eye on January, full stop. It starts in 2 days and it goes very, very quickly, January. So I want to see Man United. I'm not going to be sat there waiting until the 20th of January going, there's still 11 days left. It doesn't work like that. If you're going to get business done in January, you know about it in the first 10 days, because you can't wander into January and start going, mid-January, let's try and buy a left back. It's really difficult to do business in January when you just pick up a phone in mid-January. You've got to have been doing stuff in December. So I think the first 10 days of January are going to be massively key to sort of let us know whether anything is going to happen. And if it's dead quiet by the middle of January, I'd say it's going to be dead quiet at the end. So I'm very much watching this situation and seeing what we're going to do. With regards to the left back, there are some good options out there, but you've got to generate the funds to do it. And on the situation with Rashford, I would also hope that he's not in the squad tomorrow and that there is actual movement very, very early in the window for him to go somewhere else, whether it's a loan or a permanent deal. Hopefully, things are happening with that, because I just don't see a way back now. I did say to you a week ago, if he was to play at Old Trafford tomorrow, even off the bench, I think it would be a really dangerous situation. No, when I say danger, I mean there may be boos. I think when you say you want to leave Man United fans can be really pissed off about that. But I think what's been said this morning, that he's been an issue for years and loads of managers have said it, that expands that dislike towards that player as well. It's an untenable position. I don't see a way back. I mean, I know I said that a week ago, but I just don't see a way back. So they need to move on very, very quickly. I'm very surprised at how quickly this has gone from Rashford posting on Instagram about how good it was to train under Amorim to not being picked for the last few games and saying he wants to leave. But the first cut is the deepest, isn't it? And sometimes you've got to just cut, the sacrificial lamb, I suppose. So we'll see what happens with Mendes. There was a story last night about Joe Bellingham that seemed to be going around Twitter a little bit. The source of it is just not good. And with all respect to that source, it's just not it's not Fabrizio Romano and it's not David Ornstein. And I think in relation to transfers, if it's not one of those two, I don't think we live in that world anymore. I don't think we live in a world where people can say, I'm hearing we might do this. Maybe 2 years ago you could, but that's not the way it works now. Like, say what you like about INEOS, and there's a lot of bad things to be said, but when it comes to transfers, we're not that club anymore where somebody can go, I'm hearing we're going to get Joe Bellingham. So if we get Joe Bellingham at some point, he's a player that Man United have scouted. But we're more likely to get Rig from Sunderland. He's a player that we've scouted more. So, and I don't know that we're going to sign Rig. But what I'm saying is, I don't have a lot of time for Man United are looking to sign Joe Bellingham in 2025 or Chris Rigg in 2025 or Tyler Dibbling in 2025 because it's January I'm interested in. I'm not interested in the summer. Loads of things could happen in the summer. We could all chuck a name and get it right. It doesn't mean and I could say to you, Man United are going to sign Gyökeres in the summer. It doesn't mean I've been told that. It just means I'm just playing the guessing game. So I don't see that happening, and I don't think it's the right sort of deal that Man United need to do anyway. I think that we need players to come into this team now, and that doesn't mean that we can't buy the Nipans and the Riggs and the Dibblings and players like that. Absolutely bring those players in, but we've got the Mainus and the Yoros. We actually need players that can come in and play well now. Now, Kerkez is 21, but he's been playing regularly in the Premier League against good opposition. He goes straight into your team. Edison at Atalanta goes straight into your team. We need players now to play now because we still have an opportunity now to win the Europa League. And bringing in a young player in January, for me, is, again, in the future, we're going to be really good. So I think we need to be bringing in players that are ready for the now. We need the finished product, says Ray. Exactly. Romano has been talking as well. He's basically saying that there is no talk of Manchester United removing or looking to sell Lisandro Martinez or Andre Onana, but Christian Eriksen looks like he will be going in the summer. Now, some people will say, well, that's just typical Fabrizio filling space, but I think it's probably not something he hasn't said before, but as we always know with football, it's never a problem to reiterate a statement because football can change. Christian Eriksen came on at the weekend, and it wasn't the weekend, was it? It was Thursday, and did okay. Sometimes this happens. You have a renaissance for a player and they end up staying. Some people think that Harry Maguire might end up staying. Christian Eriksen will go because from a financial point of view, I think if you haven't got your head around this yet, then obviously you need to very, very quickly. INEOS are sacking people. INEOS are cancelling bonuses. INEOS are removing themselves from, paying ambassadors like Sir Alex Ferguson. They are taking themselves out of the equation for giving charitable contributions. There is absolutely no way when they can let Christian Eriksen go for nothing in the summer and save 150 grand a week, they're not going to keep him. This won't even be a football decision. They won't keep him. Lindelof, they just won't keep him. It doesn't really matter what they do in the next 6 months. They won't keep them because they'll go, there's 300 grand a week saved. So Eriksen's gone. Lindelof is gone. Who else is out of contract in the summer? I mean, Maguire's an interesting one. I still think he might stay at 150, 190k a week. They could get rid of it, but yeah, there's just no way. As for people like Martinez, we're not selling Martinez in January. Like, we're not selling Bruno in January. Like, we're not selling Delo in January. Like, I'm just very focused on January. And nobody can tell me that we're not selling Lisandro Martinez in the summer. And nobody can tell me we're not selling Bruno in the summer. And nobody can tell me we're not selling Garnacho in the summer. But in relation to January, none of those players will go. So I'm looking at incomings and outgoings in January. There's no point thinking about the summer. 6 months is a long time. And we'll know what's happened in the league. We'll know how many games we've lost. We'll know what we've done in the Europa League. And we'll know what we've done in January. For me, it's all about January. We're not going to sell Lisandro Martinez. So just focusing in on January is the most important thing. And there's some really big things that need to be done. And we need to come out of January playing much better than we are going into it, because in February is when the Europa League knockouts start. And I think we've got 7 games in January. So we need to be using these games to improve, 100%. What about Jonathan David? Mark, says Chuck. Out of contract in the summer. Possibility. Mawani, PSG is a possibility. I'd like to bring another striker in January just to lighten the load on Rasmus and share the load out, because I don't think Xerxes got the capability to play in that out-and-out number 9 position. Mark, the fans have been a problem for years. If they didn't go to the home games when Ronnie called them out, then they would be fine, says Joshua Block. Agreed, needs to be concrete at very least by Romano, says Tom. Thanks for all the great content this year, says George. Thank you very much. What date are we at? 29th, yes. I completely lost track of the day today. This is probably the weirdest weekend of the year, isn't it? No football yesterday on a Saturday. I'm watching telly last night and I'm going, it's Saturday night. This is weird. And then I woke up this morning and it's a Sunday and I'm like, every day's felt like Sunday for the last 5. But yeah, Man United play tomorrow. I'm on That's Football actually this afternoon at 5. I'm going to do West Ham Liverpool. I've had a football withdrawal, so I'm definitely going to do a watch along this afternoon. Should we buy a left back if he plays wingers out wide, says Alexander. Should we buy a left back if he plays wingers out wide? I would buy a left back who's very good at attacking. I think that sort of, yeah. Wonder how Rashford's story will be reported by the Manchester Evening News, says Big Zeg. I think we're well overdue a Rashford story to the Manchester Evening News via a certain journalist. I've been saying that for 24 hours. Do you know what's happening with the United transfers? I would like to find out. Well, this is the place to find out, Big B. Anytime now, things will start to happen if we're going to do stuff. Why build a new stadium and end up seeing our club playing in lower divisions when success at the pitch is not prioritised? INEOS is not even good at business, says Anand. All managers are complicit with Rashford or any other high-profile. I've done that one from the Attic Radio. And Luke Keelan says, Job or Rig won't leave in January. We're too light in the midfield. Great to see Ahmad smashing it. All the best, says Luke. I don't believe any of those stories, mate. It's difficult to do deals in January, and I don't believe either of those will happen, to be honest with you. What about Delap, says Harry. Again, this Liam Delap story is this summer 2025. I think, look, maybe you're new. If you are, subscribe, get involved. Maybe you've been here for years, but we've covered so many transfer windows. And what I can safely say to you in late December is the people who are talking about summer transfer windows are chancers. They don't have any information. They've got no idea what Man United are going to do in January, let alone the summer. Like, remember the video I did in March last year? Didn't get any of the transfers right. There were other people, doing spreadsheets of all the targets, didn't even get fifth target right. So it's guesswork. And that's fun, but it's guesswork. So when I see people talking about Liam Delap in the summer, and I think I know which journalist that was, it's guesswork. It's just, I know, let's put this out because I might sound a bit authoritative. And that's just the way the journalism world works. And they get very offended if they heard that, but it's true. The whole foundation of journalism for the last 50 years in football has been guesswork. Very rarely do you get, insight. We got it in the summer. I think it was Chris Wheeler and somebody else on the Branthwaite story. They obviously had an amazing source, and obviously we didn't sign him, but we did bid, and it came out of nowhere. But Liam Delap in the summer. Well, I tell you what, Harvey Barnes in the summer. It's just guesswork. There is just no way Man United are picking up the phone and going, guess what? We're going to sign Liam Delap in the summer. It's not. We will be scouting. We will be scouting, but we are still scouting players that we won't sign. Like we've got so many scouts at clubs like Benfica and Atalanta, and we have had for years. How many players have we bought from Benfica in the last 3 years? How many players from Atalanta have we bought in the last 3 years? Rasmus. So yeah, we will be scouting these players, and this is what happens. Journalist attends a game, sees somebody they know is a scout for Man United. Man United are going to try and sign this player in the summer. Right, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks everyone for watching. Do you fancy us getting something tomorrow, Mark? Says enjoy writing. I think, you know what? I expect us to lose, but I also expect a bit of a siege mentality. I'm 100% behind Amorim. I think his job is so difficult. I put myself in his shoes. Walking into a game, I think we'll lose, not because of him. So I sort of go into the game with a bit of, as per usual, I want a result and I want a bit of fight and I want Amorim to get a result. But I think we're underdogs, definitely. It's Sunday. I'm trying to think what will happen today. 8 o'clock show, yes. I'm on That's Football at 5 o'clock for West Ham against Liverpool. Hopefully we'll get a shock there. And yeah, and then 8 o'clock. I might do 7 o'clock on here actually. I might go straight into the 7. I'll see. Anyway, I'll be live on That's Football at 5. Obviously, if anything else happens, we'll go live here as well. Take care, everybody. What comes first, says JE? 3 million subscribers to the United stand or United winning the Premier League? If we got 3 million subscribers, I would say it would take us 3 years. It's a good one. It's a good one. We might get 3 million subscribers before Man United win the league. Hopefully not. Hopefully not, JA. Do Spurs Wolves instead support Korean players, says Ji Sung Park. Thank you very much for that. Okay, take care, everyone. Speak to you all in a bit.